Hello and welcome once again to Dose of Music. This episode is going to be a little less informative perhaps and a little more fun. What I want to do here is just bring to light some of the most interesting album introductions that I have come across in many years of listening to music. I had a preliminary list of around 30, which is obviously completely unfeasible. So I've gone with 7 in the interest of time. I did this condensing on the basis of variety in genre and my own preference. I'm not ranking anything here. I'm not saying that these are definitively the best album introductions of all time. I just think they're really cool and original ways of introducing albums. I don't want you to be thinking, I've forgotten about one, or that a particular introduction deserves to be here. It's not like that at all. It's just a general discussion of unique ways of introducing an album, and there are far more out there than what is contained in this episode. So what is it exactly that we're looking for when we discuss great introductions? What is the criteria? I've split it into 3 different aspects. How well does the introduction set the tone for the rest of the album? How interesting is it from a musical perspective? And the third and most important aspect, I think, is whether the artist has done something unusual, original, something that you perhaps haven't heard before. This is the primary focus here. If we just analysed album introductions from a musical, technical standpoint, we would be here all day. The options would be endless. It's more about identifying little things that make you go, oh, that's weird, that's original, I've not really heard something like that previously. So, let's kick things off with arguably the greatest piece of music ever created by human beings. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and the opening song, Speak to Me. Been mad for fucking years, absolutely years, been over the edge for yonks. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. Unique, original. The opening minute leads us right into the first actual song on the album, Breathe. But when you listen to the final song, Eclipse, it ends with a similar heartbeat to what you just heard, so it takes you right back to the start, making Dark Side a continuous piece of music. The footsteps, the sound effects from the song Money, which they made in the studio, by the way, filling pouches with coins and dropping them next to a mic, for example. Bells chiming from time, references to mental health. All these things tease many songs from the album. This is how you introduce a masterpiece. Okay, for our second, and remember, this is not a countdown by any stretch of the imagination, we have Building Steam with a Grain of Salt from DJ Shadow's trip-hop classic, Entroducing.
Producing.
From listening to records, I just knew what to do. I mainly taught myself. And, I did pretty well, except there were a few mistakes that I made that I have just recently cleared up, I'd like to just continue to be able to express myself as best as I can in the instrument. And I feel like I have a lot of work to do still. I'm a student of the drums. And I'm also a teacher of the drums too.
don't know about you, but I think that is so cool. The timing of it is just impeccable. The words are spoken by George Marsh, a jazz drummer and university professor, and having those words, I'm a student of the drums, I'm also a teacher of the drums too, featuring a kind of smug laugh just before bringing in an amazing drum sample, is so cool. Entroducing, released in 1994, was the first ever entirely sampled album. The third intro I want to talk about is Them Bones from Alice in Chains' iconic grunge album Dirt. It's possibly my favourite album from the grunge era, but there are so many, it's so hard to choose. But this introduction hits you so hard, it lets you know exactly where you are in the very first second. So consider this a headphone warning. I'm not going to fade this in as I do with the others. You will hear Lane Staley shouting at you in full effect. So I hope that didn't scare you too much. But who does that? Who introduces an album like that? I've never heard anything like it. And it moves so quickly. Within 40 seconds, we've got an introduction, a verse, and a chorus. Jerry Cantrell, who is a really special guitarist and musician, creates a really fascinating chord progression. It just moves up the guitar in half steps. So the notes are all really close together, which is unusual and creates that dissonant sound that is so audible in much of Alice in Chains' music, but in particular here. The timing is also very interesting in the song. So the verses are in 7/8 timing, so you'd be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you go back and try that, you'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. But in the chorus, we go into a simple 4/4 pattern, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And most songs that you hear are in 4/4 timing. It's just natural. It just seems right. So it's always striking if you know what to listen out for when you hear those different time signatures, those odd time signatures that don't quite fit right. And it really adds to the uncertain vibe that you get from the song. And all of this sets the tone for what is one of the most phenomenal albums musically of the 1990s. Bringing things a little bit closer to the modern era, although this album is already 14 years old, which is just insane. I want to talk about the introduction to arguably Kanye West's greatest work, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Nicki Minaj begins the first song, Dark Fantasy, with an adaptation of a passage from Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes.
You might think you've peeped the scene. You haven't. The real one's far too mean. The watered down one, the one you know, was made up centuries ago. They made it sound all whack and corny. Yes, it's awful, blasted, boring, twisted fiction, sick addiction. Well, gather round, children, separate lesson. Can we get much higher? So high. So high. Can we get much higher? So high. Can we get much higher? So high.
fantasize about this back in Chicago. Mercy, mercy me, that mercy I go. That's me the first year that I blow. How you say broke in Spanish, me no I blow. Me drown sorrow in
So
that
structurally,
I blow.
this is great. You've got 3 very distinct sections within the first 90 seconds of the song. Most songs have 3 sections throughout the entire piece, maybe even 2. How about 3 within the first minute or so? You've got the Nicki passage, the singing, and then into Kanye's rapping for the verse. But the Dahl passage, which I mentioned, prefaces his dark retelling of Cinderella, and it reads as follows. I guess you think you know this story. You don't. The real one's much more gory. The phony one, the one you know, was cooked up years and years ago, and made to sound all soft and sappy, just to keep the children happy. So you can see how similar the two things are. It's a really interesting source of inspiration for the introduction. Next, I want to talk about the Smiths' 1986 album, arguably their crowning musical achievement, The Queen is Dead. It's melodic, colourful, often vulgar, frank, and it's a real stroke of musical genius. The introductory song shares its name with the title of the album.
Between arches, her very lowness with a head in a sling. I'm truly sorry, but it sounds like a wonderful thing. I say, Charles, don't you ever crave to appear on the front of the Daily Mail, the rest in your mother's.
So what's actually being said there is as follows. Take me back to dear old Blighty. Put me on the train for London town. Take me anywhere, drop me anywhere, in Liverpool, Leeds or Birmingham, but I don't care. I should like to see... And then it cuts off into Mike Joyce's amazing drum solo, and then Morrissey's typically ostentatious lyricism. Her very lowness with a head in a sling. I'm truly sorry, but it sounds like a wonderful thing. I don't know where he comes up with this kind of stuff. It's just mind-blowing. But the song at the start, before the drums come in, is from an old music hall song from World War I, and the sample is taken from the film The L-Shaped Room, so a bit of a bizarre source of inspiration there. And you wonder who or how they would come up with an idea like this, maybe watching the film and one of them thinks, oh wow, that would work really well on the introduction to what would become one of the most iconic albums of all time, certainly of the 80s. And it's intriguing to really consider the strange ways in which these genius minds work, and that they come up with something like this, something that is unusual, something that is entirely original. Next, we have an introduction that we spoke about in the very first episode of the podcast, Portishead's Mr. Ons. Now, there is far more depth to be found in the first episode surrounding this album, and in particular this song. But what I do love most about this song, in terms of its introductory value, is the announcing of the band with that turntable piece morphing into Portis head. It's very tasteful, and it's not really something that you hear all that often. You don't hear, I don't know, Black Sabbath saying like Black Sabbath at the start of their albums. You get it somewhat in hip-hop music, especially modern hip-hop music, where rappers like Migos, for example, love to announce the fact that they're about to come in to a verse. It's not quite done in this kind of way, though. It's not done with the same level of sophistication, the way it combines with the turntables and the incredible music that lies underneath this. In 1997, Radiohead shook the musical world with the release of OK Computer. At the time, it was hailed as one of the most original and sophisticated pieces of music ever created, and that still holds true to this day. It is probably my favourite album of all time. If I really had to just pick one, gun to my head, pick an album, I would probably say OK Computer, but maybe I'd say something else if you caught me on a different day. The opening song, Airbag, really demonstrated what was to follow on the album, and the evident musical departure from the previous album, The Bends. In that minute or so of music, there is so much to break down. The drum loop that you can hear, according to producer Nigel Godrich, was inspired by DJ Shadow. You remember that whole being a teacher and a student of the drums thing we just spoke about? The song is also harmonically ambiguous, and that's made clear instantly. What do I mean by that? All songs have a key. That key is usually clearly defined, and the overwhelming majority of songs will not use chords or notes from outside that key. Whereas Airbag combines two keys simultaneously, A minor and A major. You might think that they're similar because they both start with A. But E major, for example, is far closer to A major than A major is to A minor. Without being too technical, it's very rare for a song to be composed like this. In your left headphone, or earphone, if you are even using a device like that, you can hear the heavily distorted guitar playing in A minor, which is why it sounds quite imposing, quite ominous, and that is actually matched by a cello, by the way, that might not have been entirely audible to you on first listen, but it's there. In your right, there is a far lighter guitar part playing a continuous riff in A major, which sounds much happier. And the verses also go in this direction. Tom York sings 3 lines per verse, the first sounding quite ominous and dissonant, being in A minor, and the other 2 sounding much more jolly, being in A major. So I hope that wasn't too complicated, but it really does contribute to what is an incredible introduction. It really sets the tone for the instrumental and harmonic sophistication and experimentation carried out by Radiohead. And really, this could go on forever and ever. I'm sure you can all think of albums with great introductions. And as I previously said, I had so many when I did a preliminary list for this episode. Just to name a few. Born Under Punches, Talking Heads, Girls on Film, Duran Duran, Station to Station, David Bowie, Aaron Shaw, The Cause, Konnichiwa, Skepta, Scarborough Fair, Simon & Garfunkel, Tunnel of Love, Dire Straits, Teenage Riot, Sonic Youth, 2112, Rush, Pornography, Travis Scott, Let's Go Crazy, and 1999, both by Prince. And another really clever one that stands out to me is the intro to The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, where a teacher is taking a register in a classroom, and it really fits the album and the little bits of dialogue that come between each song. But the point is not to cover all of them, or to rank the introductions either. The point is rather to highlight some of the excellently creative ways in which some of the greatest albums of all time have been introduced. Truly original artists who take great care and pride in their work treat their introductions like the opening scene of a film. It must captivate their audience and set the tone for the piece of art that is forthcoming. And if you can do that, create sophisticated music, and add elements that are unconventional, that is the sign of a true artist.
Chose to move to fuck this shit. At that moment, the one known as Jacques turned the sky. Chose to jump off his mama porch, leading the stampede of lost souls. In the middle of their metamorphosis, not quite through with their journey. Ain't made it to wherever the fuck they gon' be in life. But wherever it is, it's better than here. So fuck you.
Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I only want you to have some fun.
Please respond when I call your name. Kevin Charles, Jairus Boykin, Alicia Simmons, Philip Valdez, Gabrielle Solano, Latoya Bradbury, Anton Mitchell, Shaquan Sutton, Corey Thomas,